Poštovani gledatelji, dobar dan, pratite naš program Balkan u Europi. Ja sam Ivana Dragičević.
Ja sam Borjan Jovanovski.
Europska unija objavila izvještaje o napretku za zemlje Zapadnog Balkana i Tursku.
Ako postoji zajednički imenitelj koji povrzuva site ove države v tekstotne izveštajite i ova godina zažele korupcijata.
Korupcija, čini se, nije samo vezana za stabilnost i ekonomski razvoj jugoistoka Europe i naše regije.
Туку корупцијата, како што се наведува во некои извештаи, станува закана и за безбедноста на Европа.
O zaključcima izvještaja o napretku zemalja Zapadnog Balkana te posljedicama koje bi izbjeglička kriza i teroristički napadi u Francuskoj mogli imati za regiju danas, razgovaramo sa našim dragim gostima. S nama su Tonino Picula, predsjednik izaslanstva Europskog parlamenta za odnose s BiH i Kosovom. Dobar dan, dobrodošli. Gospodin Alojz Peterle, izaslanik zajedničkog parlamentarnog odbora za Makedoniju. Dobar dan i dobro nam došli. Gospodin Ivo Vajgl, član odbora za stabilizaciju i pridruživanje Srbije Europskoj uniji, član ovog izaslanstva Europskog parlamenta koje je pokušavalo nešto napraviti u Makedoniji za vrijeme političke krize. Dobar dan, dobrodošli. And we have with us Corina Stratulat, expert and analyst from European Policy Center. Welcome to our program today.
Good afternoon.
So, let's start with an overview from what was said in a progress report. Who's winner, who's loser this year, according to the progress report of the European Commission? Let's start with you, Mr. Picula.
Wrong question. Why? I guess it's a wrong question because there's a three basic novelties in this year approach of the European Commission in assessing different countries from not only Western Balkans, but Western Balkans and Turkey. First, it's a new approach, new methodology. It's the first time that Commissioner Hahn expressed or presented the report in a fresh way, comprising a new methodology, of course, intending to, in a way, for more than 1 year, stabilizing criterion for assessing respective countries of the Western Balkans, aspirant countries of candidate countries. And, of course, a second is a content. Many countries, of course, in their individual presentations, of course, showed certain progress on different levels, but you also mentioned there is a lot of shortcomings from the previous years. And, of course, what is a big novelty and in a way cast a long shadow over this report is not only refugee crisis, but the security landscape and political landscape. We are talking about countries which aim to one day become members of European Union. And the good question is, in what condition, in what shape European Union is today, and what is a state of play within organization which aims to embrace all those countries one day?
What do you think, Mr. Peterle? What was the results of the efforts of the European Commission to reform the countries in the Western Balkans to play its crucial role of the transformative power? What has been achieved, having in mind the progress report from the last year and the progress report that we have this year?
The progress report reports also for this last year about positive developments, but also about developments which make concerns. For sure, this report was done in another political framework, which requests also another attention as far as credibility is concerned. And I would say, generally, I would say that I'm not satisfied with the progress. We always say the European perspective is open, but we see a very asymmetric situation. Still, countries are in very different statuses as far as accession process is concerned. And this is not good, and sometimes internal tensions overshadow European perspective. We had to take care about normalization in two countries, in two candidate countries, what means additional problems. I would expect that in this situation, which is marked also by refugee crisis, by problems we have in the Union, so that the regional cooperation is also taken in a more serious way, because those countries have to demonstrate the will to cooperate among themselves as well.
Mr. Picula mentioned the changed landscape as well as Mr. Peterle concerning the refugee crisis and the security situation, especially after attacks in Paris. We have internal, really deep problems. From Macedonia, it's deep political crisis, now question with the border with Greece, refugees, tensions in Montenegro in the light of maybe finally being invited as a new NATO member country. Bosnian old problems, Serbia and Croatia finally starting cooperating after the refugee crisis in this segment. So how do you assess all these internal problems could be solved in this kind of, I can say, extreme situation that we are all in?
Well, in approach of European Union to the accession of potential accession of the countries of southeastern Europe, I would say is not as important these internal political problems they are facing. Also, the member states are facing the internal political problems, and Europe is not in the excellent shape. So I maybe am less pessimistic as you sounded when you opened the
I'm just
debate.
asking. Yeah.
I think this from this year's reports, progress reports, we can also draw a conclusion that actually all the countries are progressing, all the candidates countries are progressing. There are some standard problems like you mentioned, corruption is a problem of all post-communist or transition countries. But overall, all countries are making some progress regarding acquis communautaire. So I am not as pessimistic as far the progress is concerned, but I might be more concerned with the political climate in Europe, where the enlargement is less priority in this particular moment. The attention has been drawn to the problem of refugees, to the terrorism at this moment, and the failure of European Union to play a decisive role in the global political scene in Europe. So I would conclude this part of this round by saying it is encouraging. If anything is encouraging, it is encouraging, and it is not undisputable that all countries of Southeastern Europe should become members of European Union, and it would mean the finalization of a process of stabilization of the continent. And these reports are just showing how far the countries are coming. Where there is a new idea, besides of the methodologic changes Mr. Picula mentioned, also that in the future there won't be one day where all the progress reports will be published, but there will be more that every candidate country will be judged on their merits, and it doesn't mean that it should be done on the same day or in the same moment.
Corina Statulat, how do you see, what's your assessment as a think tanker, as a NGO? How do you see the progress in the Balkans from not so diplomatic, without this diplomatic perspective?
Right. Look, the EU's enlargement towards the Balkans is an ongoing process. So little wonder that countries at different stages. Aside from this, the approach, the principle that we are applying in the case of the Balkan enlargement is that of the regatta approach. Therefore, of course, different countries progress in their own time, in their own rhythm. So, as before, the picture is mixed. We have Serbia and Montenegro being officially in the phase of accession negotiations with the EU. Albania making good progress according to the Commission's evaluation in approaching the possibility of opening accession negotiations with the EU and being at the moment at the stage of candidate status. And then we have the two pieces of good news, if you want, in my view, this year. That's Bosnia and Herzegovina, which has returned to the reform track, as well as Kosovo, which has made important steps forward by signing a stabilization and association agreement, but also by achieving important agreements in the with Serbia in the EU-facilitated talks. However, if there is some concern, it comes from the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, which, according to the Commission's report, is at an impasse, as we know, because of the political crisis in the country. So this is, in a nutshell, a little bit the
overview.
Overview.
Can I just ask for the person who was kind of responsible for these two good examples, as you told them, but for these good examples, we really have to return on the thesis we got: corruption, corruption, corruption. Because in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo, that is the main issue. We have a data that the word corruption is in Kosovo report mentioned 66 times as a word.
Add no progress in any of the, let's say, fundamental issues. Freedom of the media, fundamental rights.
That's the reason, I guess, why the Commissioner Hahn and European Commission picked this new methodology to approach problems in respective countries of the Western Balkans. And of course, I would like to specifically answer on situation BNH and the Kosovo. It's a two-sided medal, of course. It's not let's say, hard to see that on the institutional level, there is a certain progress made, of course. Bosnia and Herzegovina's stabilization association agreement had been put into the 1st of June this year, and it's not only European Commission new approach to assessment of the Western Balkans country, but it's a new approach of the European Union generally to the situation of the BNH starting last December. Now it's 1 year from launching that new approach, and we can see some progress in the country. On the other hand, I've been engaged in a couple of the discussions on situation and state of play in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and would like to say that if you try to find a much sharper picture of what is BNH today, we can check into inside a certain triangle. What I mean by triangle. I think day after tomorrow we will not celebrate but mark 20th anniversary of Dayton Peace Accord had been signed with the American airborne base Wright-Patterson. And a lot of people, of course, are invited to discuss situation after 2 decades of Dayton Agreement has been in place in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And you got 2 processes. One is announced officially from the state presidency that BNH will put a credible application for candidate status in the course of the next week or month or 2. Okay, it's very good to hear, but on the other hand, you got announced referendum in the Republic of Srpska, which in a way try to influence in a bad way, negative way, shaking very fundamental of the BNH as a state. So if you try to answer what BNH is today, we are torn between 2, I think, controversial processes, approaching with application to the European Union candidacy status and, of course, referendum in the Republic of the Srpska. It's not the only problem BNH is facing right now. Yes, 66 time mentioned corruption is maybe problem number 1.
Report, yeah.
And the Kosovo, of course, it's absolutely good news that in a little secrecy, that agreement had been signed in the office of Madame Mogherini or Han, I'm not sure. I think it's, let's say, reason they didn't want to disturb some European Union countries which still don't recognize Kosovo as a sovereign state. But on the other hand, we are witnessing serious clashes within
Inside
premises of the Parliament of the Kosovo and even on the streets. So if we can, of course, try to draw a sharper picture of the Western Balkans country, including these two countries, we need to be more precautious. And the real question is how economic situation, let's say, multiplied with the refugees crisis, might affect positively or negatively on the current state of play.
Mr. Peterle and Mr. Weigel, both responsible for the Macedonia. I must ask how you interpret this very unique situation we are facing this year with Macedonia. The recommendation is in a way frozen, some say withdraw, which is a kind of unique case in a whole history of the process of enlargement. Never happened till now. What's your interpretation? What's happened with the Macedonia recommendation to start the negotiation? Mr. Peterle?
Yeah, I regret that the reasons appeared which led to such a conclusion. Macedonia was facing a particular, I would say, specific internal political situation. Now we are pleased by normalization, which was possible after mediation of the European Commission and parliamentary troika with political forces in Macedonia. I would prefer to see a different development, that forces were united and well coordinated, and that conditions are met. But now we are pleased that the parliament functions again, that the agreement was implemented in several points. We expect that it will be implemented fully. This
Do you expect
this
but
internal...
not so many people in Brussels are so optimistic about the perspective that this agreement will fully
I have hope that political wisdom and willingness to cooperate will prevail, because in that blockade there was no added value. As I said, that there is no added value with the blockade of Macedonia on its way to the European Union. And of course, these facts, I would say, do not provide more allies of the accession process of Macedonia, because this is considered as a problem, or was considered as a problem. So I really hope that internal development in the months to come will demonstrate higher political culture and European determination. And I would wish that the Commission was not in the position to innovate methodology.
Mr. Weigel, what?
Well,
frozen, withdraw, or conditional?
Yeah, you didn't mention that I am rapporteur for Macedonia.
Macedonia,
so
yes.
I'm just now started with the parliamentary report on today. We had a meeting, initial meeting on this document, and I can assure you that it won't be without recommendation for Macedonia to start negotiations with the European Union. But there will be a conditionality. There will be a conditionality saying that Macedonia has to fulfill all points of agreed upon Pergino agreement, and it depends on a result of the democratic elections, which should be held in April. So these two conditions have been put And this is a difference of the previous years, which is very serious. But still, it does not mean that we close the door to Macedonia. I am pretty sure that in this parliament, we will keep the door open. The majority of the parliamentarians in the previous also year supported very clearly the Macedonian pace to the European Union. There is a substantive difference on this way if you compare Macedonia with other countries, because Macedonia for several years has been the best of the candidates.
And what's happened?
Fulfilling
suddenly?
A lot of
To become the worst
criteria
one.
which the other did not. What happened was the political crisis. What happened was the wrong direction of the development of Macedonian democracy. And it was reflected in the well-known, I would say, political disaster disclosed by the
Opposition.
telephone taped recording, no? And this was a serious event. Besides of it, there were some other serious events, like incident in Kumanovo, which showed that in country there are problems which are somehow hidden and have not been registered on our side. But I would say the Persian agreement gave the chance, a second chance, maybe even the last chance, to the country to embark in the process of approaching the day when the country will start the negotiations. And of course, there is the so-called name issue. And we know that there is absolutely no progress has been achieved in relations with Greece. So Greece is still opposing to start negotiations. And I think also this is a serious challenge for Madame Mogherini and our External Action Service. We should take initiative there. Americans obviously did not deliver. And we should not wait for the new American administration. We should try to settle this problem between a member state of European Union and the candidate country.
So do it. Madam Stratulat, what's to close this
Sure.
with Macedonia, how do you see this unique case in the history of the process of enlargement?
Yeah.
Recommendation
Just shortly,
withdraw,
because we'll
conditional,
have some other
or
issues.
frozen?
Well, I mean, this goes back to your question about corruption, because I think what's interesting, it's not just corruption, it's the fact that despite insisting very strongly on democratic conditionality on the side of the European Commission for quite a few years now, what we're seeing at the moment is not only that there's been no good progress in the region, but we're actually seeing no progress at all, including in some of the forerunning countries like Montenegro and Serbia. And if among the democratic conditions, if we look at which ones is faring worst, is actually the one related to the freedom of expression, more so than corruption. As regards the specific case of Macedonia, and I think it's in a sense not that unique, because the problems at the political level, the problems which ultimately boil down to state intervention into judiciary, into state institutions, interference with media freedom and so on. I mean, we've known about these issues for quite a while, and we kind of turned a blind eye to it. And to be honest and to be fair, this is not a singular case in the region. This kind of what we call state capture authoritarian tendencies, we are seeing them quite clearly in other aspirant countries as well. And as we saw in the case of Macedonia, it could come back and harm us in the long run.
Let's talk about the consequences.
Talking about, yes, the corruption, and after the attacks in Paris, European Commission launched kind of this new action plan against the illegal trafficking of weapons and explosives. And one of the points which will be discussed at the beginning of December with the ministers from the region is the control of illegal weapons and explosives in the internal market, especially from the Balkan countries or former war zones. Some data of global financial integrity sources say that in the first decade of the 21st century, 111.6 billion of US dollars were inside of illicit financial outflows via crime, corruption, and tax evasion. It has also the percentages, how much of the country's GDP it was. So concerning these two factors, what mechanisms are there in the hands of European Union at the moment, which is not basically functioning in this kind of circumstances, to tackle this, and how can leaders from the region act and react in this kind of circumstances?
Excellent question, no answer. Almost no answer, because, you know, starting with September 11th, 2001, after New York had been attacked, you know, it's been a lot of talks how global community, international community act and how to deliver, let's say, result in confronting not only terrorists on ground, but how to dismantle some called it economy of terrorism, financing the terrorism, how to stop money laundering, how to stop cash flow to terrorist organization needed for launching, let's say, completely new generations of warfare against the states. It's not asymmetric wars, it's something else. It's been, I guess, 12, 13 years since then, and I saw a report in international organizations, of course, admitted that we are facing very poor results in doing that. Now, United Nations and some affiliated organizations, they are trying to launch completely new methodology, how to control cash flow and money laundering in order to stop financing terrorism. And I think the next great move within the European institutions must be some kind of agreement. What to do right now to stop it, how to not completely seize cash flow, but how to put it under the control, how to freeze certain assets. Now we in European Union talked since today only how to freeze some assets around Mr. Putin's in the Kremlin, some cronies of Mr. Putin. But now they are completely aware that we can't expect achievements in fighting terrorism without, of course, looking from the other side of the mirrors, how they are achieving the money, how they are dealing with the money, how to delivering with the money. But we need to introduce some more, of course, mechanism. President Hollande, the other day, of course, launched a very tough speech how to defend French Republic. And he announced that the Republic will not be destroyed by the terrorism, Republic will destroy terrorists. Nicely said. But now we need to check how to activate Lisbon Treaty, Article 47, Para 5.
Yeah.
Because there is
Are we in war then?
Yes, it's obviously we are facing the, let's say, certain war, but it's not war we are perceived in a classical manner. Why France? France is a forerunner in anti-terrorist coalition, deploying its military forces in a great span from the Syria to sub-Sahel Africa. But of course, it's not the only reason. I think that the most impressive and most accurate sentence about this situation has been said by one French politician, saying that they are not attacking us because what we are doing, but because what we are.
But one question again about this issue. 111.6 billion. Do you think it's a result of the policy and strategy of the European Commission in regard to the enlargement of just ticking box and ignoring the reality? Means the corruption, which is something so obvious in the region.
And now we are
talking about 111.6 billion, which could be very useful for a terrorist network. And it's a problem of Europe. We are talking about the security of Europe.
Corruption is the most frequently used word in the report. And I'm very much concerned about that fact because corruption is a consequence of weak rule of law. No? Where we don't have functioning rule of law, their corruption is a necessary consequence. But there is another consequence. If a country has a strong corruption, then it cannot meet the criteria as far as principles of social market economy are concerned. Corruption is a cost. with strong corruption, with high corruption, you cannot be very competitive because, the reasons are evident. No?
Is there any way that European Commission will start with a different kind of action, different kind of strategy in order to be more efficient, in order to spread this problem? Mr. Weigel.
Yes, Corina.
Well, I think there are many things European Union is not doing properly in this situation. For instance, that we are not exchanging the right informations within the European Union. Our police of the 28 countries is not exchanging the informations. We don't have a common overview on the flow of money, illegal money, and we are not going after those institutions and those who in European Union are making profits out of this. For instance, buying the fuel from ISIS. It would be relatively easy to check at least this source of money.
Should be.
But somebody is making big profits out of it. Therefore, unofficially. So we should not look only and speak only about the corruption in the countries, candidate countries. It is so easy and sometimes a stereotype.
Of course, it's related to the corruption in Europe.
Into European corruption.
Very much so.
And talking about the war in Europe, I of course disagree with you using the word Europe in war. Europe has very serious problem, but the war started in the slums of Paris, the slums of Brussels, in the slums wherever the young generation of the previous immigrants are living without any prospect. So this is not the case that the terrorists are coming to Europe. They have been born here. They have been created here. Their profile has been drawn here, and we have a lot of things to do in our own court before we talk about.
Corina, just a conclusion, 30 seconds.
Outside.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
Well, I think,
just 30 seconds. Just
yeah,
I have
I think
a question.
it's not fair to say that the
possible suspension of Schengen and recent refugee crisis. How can that affect our region? You have 20 seconds.
Right, I mean, but this fits in with the discussion in general, because here the key word is integration, and it's a better cooperation, and it's the fact that if you just take the refugee crisis, it has definitely highlighted the fact that the Balkans are not on the outskirts, are not in the neighborhood, are not even on our doorsteps, but rather in our inner courtyard. So the need to act together to tackle this kind of phenomena is absolutely necessary. And of course, this takes us back to the discussion about the war, because ultimately, why do we have these problems from within our own society? It's because of lack of integration. It's a lack of effective integration policies, if you want. And on the two words on the issue of corruption, I think it's unfair to judge the Commission for its attempt to deal with this issue. The real problem is that this is a very multifaceted phenomena, and you have to tackle a lot of aspects in order to deal with corruption. Corruption is not a single issue kind of headache, let's say.
Thank you so much. Poštovani gledatelji, hvala vam. Bio je još jedan Balkan u Europi. Srdačan pozdrav.
I благодарим za vrijeme.